there, welcome back. I have a very fun technique that I've done before, but this time I've got a little bit of a twist to it. I think you'll enjoy it. So just to show you the card we'll be making today, this is it. And to introduce the products we'll be using, I have out of the new Expressions range, the UR Special Die. The flower comes from the diagonal fold-over flower. We're going to be using the Lisbon from the Portuguese collection, as well as the border corner tag from the same collection. And for embossing, I'm going to be using the Creative Expressions Bed of Roses. This is an A4 embossing folder. Okay, so maybe if you were eagle-eyed, you'd spotted this background right here, and this is what we're going to do first off. We are going to use some shaving foam and do a shaving foam technique. So I like to just use the lid of a plastic box for this. It kind of contains it nicely. Just got to get a bit of foam out here. There we go. That should be enough here. It's a little messy. Let me just spread it around nice and even with a ruler. Now, generally speaking, when I do this technique, I like to do an entire piece of card so I can use it and cut it into pieces. I've got a smaller one for today that we'll be doing. But I think if you're doing it at home, it's easier if you do a whole entire piece, and then you can use bits and pieces of it. Okay, there we go. So it doesn't need to be perfectly flat, but just even. I'm going to be using Shaded Lilac Distress Re-Inker for this. Okay. So it's got a little dropper on it, so I'm just going to pop some drops around. And it's very concentrated, this color is. But you want to make sure you've got enough drops that you can kind of fill it in places. You can use two colors if you like to. You just have to be careful not to muddy them. Okay, so I'm going to use the back of a paintbrush and do a little bit of swirling. And just pick up all of those little dots of ink that I've laid down. Don't go too quickly. You don't want to mix them all the way. But you want to just distribute that color throughout your shaving foam. Now the fun thing about this technique is you can do it with kids, which is great. And every single time you do this, you're going to get a different result. So the fun comes in just seeing what you can make out of it. Okay, now the other thing you need to know is whatever you see here is what you're going to get on your paper. So if you've got still some really thick areas of ink, you still want to go through and kind of break those up without swirling it so much that you get a solid color. So be just careful about trying to move those around without getting it too mixed. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to pop my piece of white card down into that and just give it a press. I probably won't get right into the corners there, but we'll give it a go. Just make sure it's touched nice and firmly down into your shaving foam. And that ink will transfer right over onto that. Okay. Now, let me set this aside. So what you end up with when you pull it out of your shaving foam is something that looks like that. That's perfectly normal. Take a straight edge ruler and take all that away. And let me just pop that back into my container there. Now you can use that to do a second copy if you like. You can add a little more ink. You can even add a different color ink if you like. Do all sorts of things. But for today, this is what we're going to do. And I like the way that came out. So let me just tidy up all the leftover shaving foam, wipe it off the card, and I'm going to just give it a quick blast with the heat tool, make sure it's nice and dry. The foam's very dry, so it doesn't take much. Okay, so you can use your background just like this if you like, but we're going to do something different. We're going to go ahead and emboss it. So I'm using the Bed of Roses, and I want to just pick one that's got, what side has the fine lines going down, and I think that's what I want it to do. pop it in. It doesn't actually matter which one you use, but I think for this next part of the technique, having the finer lines in this particular folder works beautifully. I'm going to run it through the grand caliper. And pull this out. Now let me get underneath the edge of that. There we go. Okay, so I've got the shaving foam technique on the background, and I've also got it embossed. Now you could leave it like this, but I think I want to take it a step further just because it's fun. We're going to do a little paper grouting on top of it. So I've got the Polar White Sparkle Texture Paste for this next step, and I'm going to bring in a palette knife. Now, the only thing you need to understand when you do this over the shaving foam technique is some of that ink will come back with the sparkle texture paste. So you want to be a little bit more sparing. Usually you can pull all your sparkle texture paste over something embossed and just put it right back in. So I'm going to try to do a little section at a time and see how far that goes. Pulling it through the embossing. There we go, and a little bit more here. You just want to make sure before you put your knife back in that you're not contaminating that, so check it carefully. There we go. So I've spread that all the way around there, and you can see a little bit of that shaded lilac just moves around in that white. I'm not even going to go right to the edge, but you can see the difference in what I end up with on my knife and what ends up here. So I'm just going to, there we go, take a piece of kitchen roll and wipe that. So no waste and no contamination. Right, so set that aside. Now this will need to dry, and I usually give it an hour or two. It's very, very thin through that, so it's not bad. But when you are finished, you'll have really pretty background that's not only the shaving foam technique, but it's also paper grouted, so a little bit extra bling, so that's fun. Now I've gone ahead and added on the outside edge using the Portuguese die, and I've got one more side to do. I've already cut one. So I just need 2 pieces of this. Sorry, three little sections of this. So I'm just going to pop this off around the edge here. So that will be perfectly symmetrical. Bring my Cosmic Shimmer glue in. I'm going to put a little bit on the back of it here and here. Pop that into place, and then these are going to go behind here and here. Line that up. And then I'm just going to add some glue to that side to hold it. There we go. Straighten it up, make sure it's all nice and neat. Just give that a second. So I've got a really pretty background now that's framed with those beautiful borders. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my backing piece that I've already gone ahead and done with a little bit of the Wisteria Card and the Coconut White card to match. Peel off my mounting foam. There we go. Pop that right into the center, and it just overlaps it a bit. There we go. Ooh, stay on there. Okay. Okay. Next, I've cut the Lisbon die in white, and I've used the center there with the Wisteria Card. And I'm just going to put that in the center of the card, and that will start to frame up a nice little focal element for our sentiment. There we go. And I've gone ahead and cut a couple of these You Are Special with the little flower, and I've layered them on top of each other with some spray glue. I just love the way that that kind of builds it up a bit and gives it something, because there's a lot of little filigree, it just makes it a little bit stronger. So I'm going to go ahead and use some spray glue on the back of this to put it into place. There we go. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to give that a second just to kind of set up. And in the meantime, we can go ahead and seat our bow and flower. So I've tied a bow out of white seam binding. This is what I call a messy bow. Added a little bit of baker's twine on that. We're going to pop that down. And I've gone ahead and done one of the diagonal fold over flowers. Now I have made this flower in several other videos, so it's quite easy to find, and you can look at that. I'm just going to pop it on with some glue dots to hold it into place, and then put a little bit extra of the Cosmic Shimmer glue underneath to really solidify that. That'll keep it nice and tightly on there. And in the center of my focal element here, I'm going to just pop this into place real easily there. Sort of overhangs a little bit, but I like that. I think that's quite pretty. And I've done a couple of the beautiful teardrop stick pins, and we're going to pop those underneath here into the card. There we go. And there you have it. So you can just show off your gorgeous expression sentiment with a lovely background, and that technique is so much fun to do. Hope you've enjoyed today's video.